I remember having a conversation actually with the former guest, Ethan, who now runs July Luggage. And he came from the advertising game, and he said that the thing that really pushed him out of it was actually the fact, what you just mentioned before, when you would pitch these ideas and you've invested all this time and emotion into it and they don't get through with the client, or you don't win the opportunity, the retainer, the job, the project, whatever it may be. But like I almost was, not then at the time, but I thought in my head, like the argument against that is that that's what allows you to pitch those ideas, is the passion.
Yep.
So have you ever felt like I don't know what it is, like not a frustration, but a feeling like you would get burnt out with the industry from that?
1,000%, 10 times more than yes. Like it's just, that's why I became a freelancer, because I was like being stuck in an agency and all the politics and everything. My whole happiness used to be based on getting great ideas up and made. And then I was, winning awards, but still miserable, because if you win an award one week, there's another award show the week after. And if you've won like a silver, it's not as good as someone who's won a gold. If you've won a gold, it's not as good as someone who's won the Grand Prix. If you win a Grand Prix, it's not as good as the guy who won the titanium. And it's just this never-ending competitive thing. So I kind of just went, I need to stop basing my happiness on my work, on my paid work. So that's when I started to activate all these sort of side projects. So I've always had all these side ideas. I've never done anything with them. And you just can't do them when you're in an agency. Well, I felt I couldn't, because you're working 60 hours a week. And it's so intense in an agency. By the time you get home, you're just like, I'm done. No more ideas.
That's interesting. Like if you were to become an agency owner, how would you think about preventing that burnout? Because this is something that I think about in a new young agency is, and you look at tech companies and the way they integrate things, like Google's got like spend 20% of your time on projects you're passionate about.
Yep.
So I guess I'm curious, like if you logically were opening a business and allowing people to prevent that burnout, how would you think about it?
I would say 4 days a week, and spend that day doing stuff for yourself. Definitely. Okay. But as a side thing, I would never open an agency myself. I'm having too much fun having none of those responsibilities and just making things happen and trying to get projects up on the go. So, but I'd say to a lot of young kids, if you need to find the time for yourself. Don't base all your efforts in your day-to-day job, because you need to have things that you can personally have passion for.
Yeah.
And now because of the internet, if you have that passion and a great idea, you can make stuff happen, which is really exciting, which probably you couldn't do 15, 20 years ago, but you can now. Like everyone can attach themselves to an amazing worldwide cause, and you don't even need to have a client. If you just want to do something that you're passionate about, just make it happen. And, I just think that's really exciting. And if I was running a company, I'd say you need to have that time. You need to do that. In fact, if you don't do that, I'm going to be asking, what's wrong with you?
No, because that's something that my co-founder and I, creative director, were talking about is, I mean, it's hard now when we're as young as we are and as new as we are. But I remember putting it in our handbook and saying, like, I want staff to have a day to work on things they're passionate about. And she's like, you can't do that right now because things are still young. But, there's definitely some room in there for that. And even if you align it with stuff that's being done internally at the agency, there's definitely a way for people to get, I don't know. I find that having been in large corporates, burnout is like a massive, massive issue. And it's something so much that you've got to work against. Yeah. It's just constant pressure. There's always work. Like there will never not be work, if that makes sense. I feel like it's just got to make time for it.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I feel like particularly in all big agencies, like it's so much of a grind of so many hours, but the work that you're trying to do is trying to appeal to people. So if you don't have a life outside of advertising, you're going to be doing ads to ad people, and that's the worst sort of advertising, because what's the point? Like it's like I've won all these awards. The only award that anyone ever cares about outside of advertising is the Gruen Award.
Yeah.
It's the only award my kids care about, is the one that's the plastic thing. And that's the best one because it's outside of an advertising forum where people are just so focused on ads and what has and hasn't been done. If you just do stuff that's, like I say to young creatives, I say aim for achievements, not awards, because achievements last forever. Awards are like, there's one every 3 weeks. Yeah. But if you like the Nicky Winmar statue, like that's going to last. It's been built. It'll last for 1,000 years. Like potentially, it'll stand there longer than the stadium. The stadium will be knocked down a few times, and the Nicky Winmar statue will still be there, which is much more exciting to me than having a statue that's 6 inches tall that you may have in an office.
No, I would agree. I would agree with that. Is that how you originally thought of the Nicky Winmar campaign?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, like when it actually got unveiled, which was just an amazing moment. It was kind of around the same time as the Cannes Advertising Awards. And so my LinkedIn was full of people talking about, so humbled and honoured to win this silver, win this gold at Cannes. And I'm like, I only got a bronze, but it's a 10-foot high bronze statue of one of the most amazing moments in history, which is cool. But it's hard because being raised in advertising, it's so competitive. And even then, I feel like I was comparing myself to people, and I really, really am working so hard to stop doing that, because as soon as you're comparing yourself to people, you're just becoming potentially negative or more high and mighty than someone. And that's not good. You just need to do the right thing. You start
feeding your ego more than, like, I think, the biggest thing to come out of the self-help world in the last few years is focusing on improvements in comparisons to yourself from yesterday.
Yep.
Because the biggest thing in the past generations, and particularly in our parents' generation, is looking at themselves against others. How big is your house? How nice is your car? All these sort of things that necessarily don't make you feel great in the long run.
Yeah. I listened to this podcast called Secular Buddhism. Don't know if you've heard of it, but it's really great. And they have some really good things. And I think there was one thing where he was talking about, Noah Rochette is the host, he's talking about there was a little study done where they had a picture of 3 kids, and there was a kid in the middle who was smiling, and the 2 kids either side of the smiling kid were unhappy, were frowning. And so they took this picture and took it to Western kids and showed it to them and said, is that kid in the middle happy? And most of the Western kids are like, of course, he's smiling. Of course he's happy. But you take it to Eastern culture and they're like, is the kid in the middle happy? And they're like, he can't be because his friends aren't happy. I just think that it is an interesting way of looking at the world, like how Western society is all about making ourselves happy. But if we can do something that helps other people feel like, how much better is that be? Instead of just one person being happy, you could make 3 people, 5 people, 1,000 people feel better about themselves, and that's going to make you feel better anyway. So why don't we just do that? Why don't we help other people to help ourselves as well in a way? So trying to put the ego back and just trying to take care of people feels like that's the right thing to do. Particularly, I mean, what's happening in the world with COVID and stuff, it's so fighting each other over bloody tissue rolls and toilet paper and stuff. We need to get back to how we were when the bushfires were, and we were so open with trying to help people.
Yeah.
That's a much better vibe to be putting into the world, I reckon.